as exports, formal employment, as well as fixed direct investment. The organization serves as a trusted, credible, and go-to organization that helps our members collaborate and trade better on non-competitive issues. We're excited to celebrate our 20th anniversary this year, so save the date for our annual summit, which is coming on the 12th of October. There's 5 divisions within the Consumer Goods Council. We have the Transformation, Training and Development Division, and its core purpose is to position skills development at the core of employability in the industry. So we partner with SETAs to have graduates placed within working environments. We also have the Risk Initiative Division, and this division addresses and mitigates the variety of crime risks by engaging with law enforcement agency, namely SAPS, the NPA, SARS, including other relevant state security organs and industry association. Some of the other campaigns that are within this division is your Illicit Trade Hotline, where we have a number where you can call if you think that an item that you bought is fake or counterfeit. They're also rolling out a gender-based violence campaign in the taxi industry, where they're looking to protect women and children and vulnerable people who are prone to that kind of violence. We also have the Food Safety Initiative, and this division provides thought leadership, guidance, advice, and on technical and regulatory aspect of the FMCG value chain. So this includes retail and technical services. Its core focus is food safety, quality, nutrition, health and wellness, and related matters like food waste. We also have the legal and regulatory, as well as the sustainability division. And this division builds relationship with policymakers and regulators at a decision-making level and works with organizations, both local and international, to create an enabling environment for the viability and sustainability of the sector. Then we have GS1, which is a division that speaks to global standards, and the rest of the presentation solely talks to this division. As I had mentioned, we also do have our flagship event, which we call the Summit. And for this year, it's happening on the 12th of October, 2022. You can visit our website and book and register for that event. So GS1, what is GS1? Who is GS1? GS1 is a global standards organization. It's a neutral, not-for-profit organization that develops and maintains the most widely used global standards for efficient business communication. We have 116 member organizations or member offices, and 6 billion of our barcodes are scanned daily. Over 100 million products carry one GS1 barcode or one form of a GS1 barcode, and over 2 million companies use the GS1 standards. Most of the people know the standards as a barcode. That's the most widely recognized standard. So selling a product starts with a GS1 barcode. The barcode has launched a digital revolution, enabling a product to be identified uniquely and connected to the accurate information from the start, so from source to consumer. Our standards have been used to improve efficiency, safety, and visibility of supply chains from source to consumer. So efficiency is when you walk into a shop, you pick a product, you go to the till, they scan that product, you pay for the product, and you leave the shop with very limited manual or people intervention. So it's quick and accurate. In safety, it speaks to patient safety rights, where we want all the patients to have the right product at the right time, at the right place, at the right dose, and at the right price. And visibility provides the ability for companies as well as regulators to be able to track forward within a supply chain, as well as trace backward in case there's any product recalls that needs to happen. So we enable businesses to create a digital version of a product that is a true representation of the physical. And by so doing, we're improving the availability of reliable product information because consumer behavior has changed, where we need more information to make those buying decisions. We make it easier for you to find and buy a product, as well as your trading partners. So the buyers who are sourcing this product, we provide that visibility for them. And we're also able to deliver better shopping experiences and improve patient safety across the value of supply chain. By sharing trusted quality data of these product attributes, we are able to remove friction between business partners and improve performance and safety across the entire supply chain, where we increase the speed and automation of operation, reducing cost and waste, as well as protecting you and I, who are consumers and patients. We have 3 pillars of our standards, and we create a common language to identify your products, as well as you as a brand owner, and assets and patients. Accurately capture this information on what we call data carriers, of which you'll see in the presentation, as well as ensuring important information is accessible, accurate, and easy to understand. And that's the share part. So we have the product, we have marked the product. How do we share core information about this product with everyone within the value chain? At a glance, these are our standards. So the identifier is we can identify you with what we call a global location number. We identify your product with what we call a global trade item number. And all those keys, identification keys, depend on which part of the value chain it is. Then we have the capture. So this is what you see on products. We call them data carriers or symbols. The most widely used or known symbol is the EAN or the UPC. But in specific industries, there are recommended or regulated data carriers. For example, the healthcare department or industry is making use of the GS1 data matrix, as well as the GS1 128. But in normal retail distribution, they work with the EAN or the UPC for your consumer products, as well as your ITF 14 for your outer case barcode, so your cases, your pallets for logistics and distribution. And then the share part is, there are 3 levels of information we can share. There's the master data information, so information about the product itself, product attributes, weight, dimensions, sustainability information, features, advantages and benefits, etc. And then we have transactional information, which talks to your invoices, purchase orders, as well as event data. Now this boils into the traceability and product recall. You might ask, how then do we develop this standard? So we do have global standard management processes where we ensure that our standards are truly global. So first of all, we determine the relevance of the business case of the standard. We gather requirements, and this is including everyone within the value chain. So if it's a solution provider, if it's a retailer, if it's a manufacturer, a regulator, etc. And based on those requirements, we create these standards through collaboration and eventually develop the adoption tools, which we then distribute to the industry verticals. Our global service development process uses the agile approach for collaborative, iterative creation of GS1 services. So we evaluate the industry needs and develop product vision, define and prioritize product features, product development sprints, and then deployment and support. Globally, there is a need for the migration to 2-dimensional or 2D matrix and data bar. These are some of the 2D symbologies or data carriers within our standards. We have the GS1 data bar, which is being used in the fresh food industry. We have the GS1 data matrix, which is used in the healthcare industry, and it's slowly transitioning into consumer packaged goods or FMCG. And then we have the QR code, which most of you are aware of. It's for additional marketing information. And then we have your Uhf Rfid, which is mostly used within the apparel industry. Just an example, these are what we call one-dimensional data carriers, or 1D barcodes. We are all aware of the G1013, which is what we see on most of our products, as well as the G10-8. So this is a barcode that is reserved for those products that have very small surface area where you cannot allocate the 13 digits. So this would be like your Zambaks, your roll-ons, etc. And then we have your G1014, which is for logistics and distribution. So when you are an SMME and you have had an order from a big retailer, they will order obviously in bulk. So you have to look at how you configure your product hierarchy. So you would have the each, and then would you need a 12-pack or a 24-pack or a 48-pack to send to your customers. So global trade item numbers, it means that for every variant of a trade item, a unique barcode should be allocated. The variant can be size, flavor, the shape, fragrance, weight, pack configuration. So you might have a product that you're selling as a unit, as well as a 6-pack or a 12-pack. If there's any color variation or any promotional variation. So that means for any of those variances, you would need to have a unique barcode for that. And the example there shows you have a 250-gram mayonnaise, which is allocated its own unique number, as opposed to the 500-gram and the 1 kg. Similar to how you have the hierarchy, this is a typical FMCG hierarchy. This brand owner is selling one kind of baked beans and they allocated one product, but they're also packing 24 of those baked beans in a case, and this is for distribution. And on top of that, they are also generating or packing 48 of those baked beans in another higher level pack. So you can see we have the consumer unit, which will always be a 600 barcode. But when you start calculating your outer cases, you have to identify which level that you're on. In this case, our first level is a 24. That's why we have a 1-600. And then our second level is a 48, which would have a 2-600. If you're packing another level, you would have a 3-600. So this is what we call level indicators. Then we have other type of symbology, which are used in healthcare. This is called the GS1 128. The reason why this is used in healthcare is to promote patient safety for the fact that it can encode the normal barcode, as well as supplementary information, such as the expiry date, a product's batch number, as well as its serial number. We have now the 2D dimensional barcode, the 2D data matrix. As you can see, it's much more nimble and much more flexible than the GS1 128, and it carries the same level of information, which would be the barcode or the G10, the serial number, expiry date, lot, and batch number. So the reason why this transition is needed, moving from linear barcodes, 1D barcode to 2D, is because we expect quick access to product information. Product packaging contains too many symbols. A perfect example would be this. You have an EAN G10, you have a QR code, and you have a GS1 data matrix. So it creates confusion in terms of the scanning environment. If I'm a shop or a retailer, which symbol do I need to scan here? If I'm a consumer, which symbol do I need to scan to get more information? So the goal is to have one symbol on one product. We also see that brands and retailers can take advantage of more data to solve new business challenges. And then the EAN or the UPC limits the use cases as it cannot hold additional data, such as the expiry dates. This is where we are right now, where you have different symbols on a product. We are nearing the transition phase, and some brand owners are in this stage where they have two data carriers. The reason for this is because it's a huge shift and change. Some retailers or shops might not have the scanning or the scanners to scan a 2D barcode, but they might have one for a 1D. So this transitional period is to allow still trade to continue and not be a barrier for trade. But for the future, we're looking to have one label or one data carrier, which can be scanned at all scanning environments. And that's a goal, should be reached by 2027. So 2D supports inventory management, sustainability, traceability, safety, consumer engagement, and improved packaging. I'll pause there. I'm happy for any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kairu, for that insightful information you've shared with us. I think I do see something on, well, at least a question or comment. May I just read it quickly? I'm not sure. I was privileged to participate in the summit in March. I was also fortunate during the summit to talk to a representative of a large company. Okay, so it's not anonymous. I'll read your comment just now, but I just wanted to see if it's specifically for Mr. Kairu. I do not have anything for you now, sir, but please don't run away if possible. If possible. But thank you so much. And I'm hoping that our audience and our delegates have a bigger or a better appreciation, rather, of the work that you do as the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa, and where you fit into this whole jigsaw puzzle from a job creation perspective, sustaining jobs, localization, and how you fit into our program as Proudly South African, as one of our long-standing friends of the campaign as well. Thank you so much for your contribution to this. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Okay, great stuff. All right, thank you, everybody. So I'm hoping that there's Mr. Kairu's contact information on the screen now. So I think it's safe to say, Martin, that you can run, but you can't hide. We'll find you.
Okay. I'm in Thin Mill Farm.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it. And our second speaker is our dear friend, who is director at a patent attorney from Tshaya Mashabela Attorneys, Ms. Tumelo Mashabela. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to see you. But I think I'm a little tired of seeing you on screen. Remember, we used to travel nationally when we could, and I'm hoping that we'll get to that point soon where we travel again.
Okay.
Welcome, Tumelo.
Okay. No, thank you. Thanks a lot, Makhumalo. Thanks for the invite. Good morning, everyone. I think with the limited time that I have, I'm going to try to squeeze in a couple of things. So the first thing that I'm going to try is to answer the question, what are the different types of intellectual property rights? Sometimes you hear a person saying, I would like to patent my song. So I'm going to tell you what are the different types of intellectual property rights. Secondly, I've heard entrepreneurs saying, okay, Tumelo, we have protected the IP, then what? So obviously, then I will try to mention the different ways in which you can generate income from the IP that you have created and protected. Thirdly, a lot of small business, they assume that, because I'm a small business, IP is not for me. So I will try to mention why IP is actually important for small business. Lastly, if we have time, I will just mention, some of the, errors or misconceptions that we have, that a lot of small business encounter in their businesses. So I didn't prepare a presentation, so I will be talking through the information that I have. So what is intellectual property? Intellectual property is the creations of the mind. It is important for small business to understand that as long as it's still in the mind, it is not intellectual property. So it needs to be created and be taken out and be written down for it to be considered to be intellectual property. And intellectual property rights, it's actually exclusive rights that are given to an IP creator, for their own benefit, or in order for them to be able to exclude other people from using that particular IP right. So there are different types of intellectual property rights. We have what we call a trademark. And I like starting with a trademark because I think all of us can actually, associate or can actually, associate better or easily with a trademark. So a trademark, it protects a name, it protects the brand, it protects, a tagline. So, I mean, we've seen lately a number of small businesses, coming up or creating sneakers, beautiful sneakers, and all of them, they are naming, all of these sneakers, they have different names. So a trademark will then protect those sneaker names in order for us to be able to differentiate from one sneaker to another sneaker type. So that is a trademark. And then we have another type of IP, which is a patent. So we all know we are still within the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of people came up with technological solutions trying to solve, one thing or the other in relation to the pandemic. So people who created the technological solutions relating either to a mask or to a PEP or a vaccine, those kind of people, their technological solutions will then be protected by a patent. So a patent protects a new solution, it protects a new product, it protects a new technological solution. Another type of IP is what we call design. Going back to my sneaker example, again, these creative entrepreneurs, they came up with these sneakers, but these sneakers, if you look at them, they have different shapes, they have different patterns, they have different configuration. So in order for them to protect all those new shapes and pattern and configurations, they will then file what we call a design. So a design protects a new shape or a new product or a new pattern or a new configuration of an article. A fourth type of intellectual property is a copyright. Copyright protects, for example, a book, or it protects a song, or it protects a computer program, or it protects various types of works. I'm not sure, I think some of you guys have been or may have read the books that have been created by Dudu Busani Dube, the Hlomu series. Those books would have then been protected by copyright, as well as the film that gets adapted from the books. That film will then be protected by copyright. Another type of IP right is trade secrets. We all know of the famous Coca-Cola secret, Coca-Cola formulation secret, rather. That formulation, Coca-Cola formulation, or the KFC recipe, that will be protected as a trade secret. So a trade secret protects something that is valuable within the company and that is not known by other people. And that will be protected by a trade secret so that other people cannot steal the trade secret and be able to do as they please with that secret. So now that we have an idea of the different types of IP rights and how those IP rights are protected, then the question is, then once I have the IP and I've protected it, either I have a patent or a trademark or a copyright, how do I commercialize it? What are the ways in which I can generate income? Maybe before I start with that, I need to mention that of these different types of intellectual property rights that I've mentioned, others, you need to undergo a registration process in order for you to obtain some of these. What do I mean? For example, you cannot say you have a patent if you have not filed a patent application. So a patent, a trademark, a design, you need to undergo a formal registration in order for you to obtain those particular rights. However, copyright and trade secrets, you do not have to undergo any formal registration. So you don't have to go and pay any attorney saying that I'm registering your copyright. So a copyright, there is no formal registration that you need to follow in order for you to obtain protection for your copyrighted work. So now that you have your IP, you've protected it, what are the ways in which you can actually generate income? There are different ways. And again, all of these ways, they will depend on your business objective or your business strategy. But the first one is what we call an assignment of the IP. So basically what happens is that you've created your IP and now you want to assign that IP. So when you assign that IP, you are selling your IP. You sell the IP, you receive a lump sum, and you walk away from that particular IP. So you no longer own that IP. So that's one way of commercializing your IP, is through an assignment. The assignment is very important that you make sure that the assignment is actually, you can actually conclude an assignment agreement. And if it's in relation to a patent, make sure that that assignment is recorded at the CIPC. If it's not recorded, it is only going to be valid between you and the person who bought it. It won't, us, the public, will not be part of that assignment. So that's one way of generating income. The other way, and which is the most common, is what we call a licensing, using a licensing model. So in this instance, basically, you are giving somebody the right to be able to use your IP. In exchange, that person pays you a royalty or a lump sum or whichever a way of compensation they wish to pay. So it's a tit for tat. I'm giving you the right to be able to use my IP, and you need to pay me a royalty. So what is important for you to note in that is that you retain ownership of your intellectual property. So that party does not own your IP. Within the license, that 3 types of licensing agreements that you can conclude. We have one which is called a non-exclusive license. This one basically means that when let's say I'm the owner of the IP, when I conclude a non-exclusive license, it means that I can actually conclude a license with more than one party. I can give party A, party B, party C the right to be able to use my IP, and all of them will pay me royalties. That's a non-exclusive license. Then we have what we call an exclusive license. An exclusive license, it's a little bit tricky, and I think a lot of people are not aware of it. When you give somebody an exclusive license, you're basically giving that person exclusivity to a point that you yourself, you can't even use that IP. So it is important for you to be aware that when you give somebody an exclusive license, you can't use that particular IP. If you use that IP, you will actually be breaching the particular contract. So that's an exclusive license. And then the third one is what we call a sole license. This one I normally recommend it, especially for some of our clients which are research institutions. I always say conclude a sole license, because a sole license basically means that I'm still giving party A exclusivity. However, I also continue or have the right to continue to use that particular IP. And like I said, especially with research institutions, you still want to be able to proceed to conduct research in relation to your IP. So then you rather give the other party what we call a sole license. So we've spoken about assignment, we've spoken about licensing. The third option is what we call, you can conclude a joint venture. And this one I normally recommend because, for example, you can have an IP, but maybe you don't have the market, or maybe you don't have the resources, or maybe you don't have the capacity. Then you conclude a joint venture agreement with somebody else, and where you are bringing the IP, they are bringing various other resources, and then you get to commercialize this IP and generate income within that particular JV. Another way is that nothing stops you from using your IP and manufacturing the products that are protected by our IP internally, and then selling those products. So we call it's just an internal usage of your IP. So these are just some of the ways in which you can commercialize your IP. And I always tell small businesses that it all depends on your business strategy. It doesn't mean that an assignment is better or a licensing is better. You are feel free to contact our firm, Tshaya Mashabela Attorneys. We will be able to advise you on which model do we think it suits your particular business strategy. So now that we've spoken about the IP, how it can be protected and how it can be commercialized. I would like to discuss this aspect where small business will say that IP is for blue chip companies. Actually, it's not. I always say the blue chip companies where it is because of intellectual property, because they managed intellectual property. So there are different ways in which actually why a small business should be managing their IP. First thing, people may not be aware, but IP is an asset. The very same way that on your financial books, you have included your table, you have included other assets within your business, intellectual property is an asset and should be included on your financial books, should be valued, and it should be included on your financial books. So the very same way that you are respecting and protecting your other asset, you should not disregard intellectual property. And another important thing is that we are now on the knowledge economy. So intellectual property it's a product of, or it's actually useful within the knowledge economy. And it is one of the crucial or important assets within a knowledge economy, because it will provide you with a competitive advantage against your competitors. So intellectual property is, what you're supposed to be trading in within a knowledge economy. Another point is that, I've assisted quite a number of entrepreneurs and small business, and I remember this young entrepreneurs coming and say, Tumelo, since I've started, or since I have filed a patent, I feel like investors are looking at me differently, which is true. So when you manage and you protect your IP, it provides you with that opportunity with the opportunity for accessing funding, and your investors indeed are going to relate to you in a different way. We once had a session where we had companies like Innovation Hub asking them, how do you guys view a person who has filed a patent and one who has not filed a patent? And they did say that if we see a company or a small business that is managing their IP, we do actually listen to them, and they do stand a much better chance of accessing funding. So intellectual property, or managing your intellectual property, will assist you in accessing funding, and as well as accessing investors. So it is important that you continue to manage and manage your IP effectively and efficiently within your business. Another point is that when you manage your IP, you actually reduce the risk of infringing other people's IP, because when you are managing your IP internally, you will be able to pick up if, while you are producing those sneakers or while you are manufacturing those sneakers, are you not infringing other people's IP? Because you will be managing your IP effectively within your business. Another thing is that when you are managing your IP and protecting your IP, you are actually getting exclusivity, in that you are able to stop other people from using your IP, because you would have protected your IP. And if we see that there's somebody who's using your IP, you will be able to issue things like a letter of demand and tell them that it is your IP and they must walk away. So it gives you that exclusivity in relation to to that particular IP. So it is, IP, hence I'm saying it is not just for the blue chip companies. And the blue chip are there because what they did, they managed IP effectively and efficiently internally, and that's how they actually got to grow their businesses. So IP is important for small business. Like I said, when you have at least filed a provisional application, or even if not filing, but if you can show an investor that you are managing your IP, you understand your IP, I believe that any investor will look at you differently, and they will appreciate that this person actually appreciates the value of the IP that they have internally. So just a quick one. I just want to mention two things that we've seen. Hence, I'm saying either it's an error or a misconception that is common amongst some of our clients, is that sometimes a person goes to the CIPC and then they file Tumelo Pty Limited, and then they assume that they have the right to use the brand Tumelo. So what do I mean? If I go to the CIPC and file Tumelo Pty Limited, and somebody goes and file a trademark in relation to Tumelo, they will be able to stop me from using that brand Tumelo. So just because you have a company registered, it doesn't mean in a particular name, it doesn't mean you have the right to use that brand on your products. I hope I made clear on that one. And I'm going to give an example. UNISA is one of our clients, and most of you would have seen that at the beginning of the year, there's quite a lot of institutions that are mushrooming, calling themselves, let's say, UNISA Tumelo, or then they go and register even the domain names, which would be unisatumelo.co.za or unisatumelo edu.co.za. Because UNISA is a registered trademark, then we are then able to stop those companies from, first thing, we are able to make them to stop using the domain name that they've registered. We are also able to stop them from using the UNISA name in relation to their company name. So because UNISA is a registered trademark. Another thing that I would like to mention is, some of you as small businesses, you may not have internal resources, which means that, or which results in that you use quite a number of independent contractors to assist you either in developing an app or writing a system for your company. It is important to ensure that when you engage with an independent contractor, it is important to ensure that the IP that the independent contractor is going to create, it is assigned back to you. So what do I mean? If you do not have an assignment of the IP, or if the IP is not assigned back to your company, it means this independent contractor, they own that particular IP. I'm going to give an example of, let's say somebody creates a logo for you, or they create a website for you. You need to ensure that when you conclude an agreement, or could be a service level agreement, there has to be some assignment provisions within that agreement where this company is assigning the IP back to you. If they do not do that, it means that they have just given you the right to be able to use that logo once, but you do not own that logo. And if you want to make changes to the logo, you need to go back to them and request permission to make the changes, or even pay for them for that particular logo. So assignment of work that has been created by an independent contractor, it is very important. And I know a lot of people would be saying, but Tumelo, we paid for it. Yes, just because you paid for it, it doesn't mean you own it. So the relationship that you have with an independent contractor is very important, and you need to ensure that they get to assign every IP that they have created on your behalf. They get to assign it back to you as the owner of that IP. Otherwise, if they do not do that, they own the IP and you do not own that particular IP. So I'm going to leave it here unless if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Tumelo. I've listened to you over and over again. Some of us have, and it's always an eye opener, blows me away. in regards to what kind of stuff we need to, look into from an IP perspective and protecting your idea and all of that. So Bongani Nkosi on the platform says, I am in the process of patenting a mobile app idea, but it seems, all right, sorry, there's a technical glitch. I'm here now. So Bongani says, he's in the process of patenting a mobile app idea, but seems there's confusion whether this can be done or not, since it's a software. Can you please assist with breaking it down for me? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So Bongani knows these things. So, the Patents Act tells us that you cannot file a patent for a computer program. But us as practitioners, how we interpreted that is that you cannot file a patent for a source code, Bongani, because you have an app. However, that app, what you did when you created the app, you wrote a source code to implement the app. However, before you wrote the source code, there is an algorithm or a system that you created before you actually got to the source code. So what you cannot protect by a patent is the source code, and the source code can be protected through copyright. However, a computer-related system that uses the source code, that you can protect by a patent. Let me give you an example of e-hailing system. Let's say when Uber started, we never had other e-hailing system. So it's an e-hailing system which is implemented on an app, but we could be able to file a patent for that e-hailing system, looking at the various technological modules of that system. However, the source code that is being used in order to implement this e-hailing system or e-hailing app, that will be protected by copyright. I hope I make sense, Bongani.
Thanks, Dumelo. I'm hoping that Bongani, was able to get that. There's a question from Noel Mbizwa, who says, on an estimate, how much are the costs of a trademark, of trademarking, copyrights, and others?
Okay. Remember I said for copyright, there is no formal registration that you have to go through, unless if you're registering a cinematograph film, but you do not have to pay anybody to register a copyright. So basically, once you've created that song, you are protected. I always advise clients to say that just make sure that the document that you've created or the book, just put a C and a copyright notice on that book. For a trademark, it varies because trademarks are filed in classes, and these classes, they define your goods and services. So I would say from filing a trademark until a trademark is registered, easy plus minus 10,000 rand. However, you can file a trademark for yourself at the CIPC. And for a patent, again, it depends on the complexity of that invention. Because we look at, whether it's the technical field relating to that invention. So easily also, because another thing on a patent, remember, you have to file what is called a provisional patent application and then file a complete patent application. So roughly, it can cost you between the whole process, it can cost you maybe plus minus 30 to 40,000 rand. So it really depends on the complexity of the invention.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dumelo. There's another Ntlantlam Tambo, says, we are a small business registered with Proudly SA, specializing in manufacturing and selling organic archer. Can you please assist us with brand awareness and getting retailers to stop? Okay, that's a proudly South African question. But Ntlantla, just to quickly say that, it's a pity that I'm going to ask you one thing in particular. Look out for all communication from Proudly South African. In fact, just over a week ago, we hosted a session specifically for old members and new members, just to take you through the kind of benefits you have as a member of the campaign. So the question you're asking us now was tackled at this session, where we were telling you what kind of, how we support you, which doors we can potentially open which doors we can potentially try to open, how we approach retailers to try and load local products on their shelves. So all of this was dealt with at that session. But the plan is to host these sessions every quarter. So please, I urge you to look out for this. But I'm not asking you to wait for the next quarter. What we can do is please write to lesego@proudlysa.co.za. We'll take you through that process. All right, thanks a lot. One more question for you, Tumelo, before we let you go. This is Kopano Makino, and the question is, how do I, as a small 3D design, without the financial infrastructure, go about getting my company logo copyrights?
Okay, I was reading this other book, and the guy was saying that, sometimes as a small business, or I think he concluded a shareholders agreement. At the end of the day, it was a very bad agreement, and he lost his company. But he said that, let me tell you, if you own a business, you can afford to protect what is valuable within your business. So I know a lot of people say, we don't have money, but I just said with a trademark, you can actually do the process through the CIPC. You don't have to use an attorney, but you need to understand what is important for your business and make sure that you guard against those particular assets. For example, if you don't protect you need to ask yourself, if you don't protect your trademark, and then somebody all of a sudden goes and files the trademarks, what would be the impact of that person having went ahead of you and filed that particular trademark? So you can file it for yourself. However, you can also visit the Innovation Hub. They do assist if you are part of their cohort, if you're part of their incubators. They do assist with a filing of trademarks. And there are other, I think CEDA as well, they do assist with funding for protection of your IP, as well as TIA. So there are other various government institutions that are also trying to assist with regard to the filing for the protection of your IP. But your IP is very important. And I don't want to mention, some of the issues that have been happening with, especially among celebrities in relation to the IP, but you can see that, because of the lack of management of their IP, people are finding themselves on a negative footing because they did not manage or protect their intellectual property. So you cannot disregard, the importance of that IP. And I would say the little that you have, you can try to actually protect your brand, your logo.
Thank you so much, Tumelo. Much appreciated. May I please request that you share your contact details, whether it's your email address, or can we share your email address with the audience, please? Because there's quite a few questions coming in, but we're not able to tackle everything in the interest of time. But if at least they know how, the delegates know how to get a hold of you, then we can share. Would that be okay?
Yes, you can, sorry, I think I was trying to send you my contacts, but yes, you can share my contact details.
Okay.
They can also follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. Our handle is @Tshaya Mashabela Attorneys. We always try to educate small business, quite a lot of information. So if you go on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, our handle is @Tshaya Mashabela Attorneys, or you can send us an email. It's info@tm-attorneys.africa. And also, like you said, Makumalo, you can send them our contact details.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Tumelo. We really appreciate your time, your insights, and the passion with which you present your story all the time. And the chat box is a buzz, but we've got to move on to the next speaker. Thank you so much. Much appreciated, Tumelo. There you go, folks. That was
Please unmute, Happy.
Thank you so much. My apologies, everybody. So that was Tumelo Mashabela, Director, Patent Attorney from Tshaya Mashabela Attorneys. And like you all heard, she's very happy for us to share her contact details with you for those of you who still have questions that we were not able to tackle during this session. Thank you so much, Tumelo. Much appreciated. Our third speaker is Andiso Madudu, who is Director from Maximum Profit Recovery, who's also going to take us through a discussion. I believe there is no presentation per se, but Andiso will take us through the kind of work that they do and how that work is designed to assist you as a business. So welcome, Andiso. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Happy. I had organized that we play a video, a quick video.
Okay, yes,
ready.
with pleasure. I'm sure technical is busy with that. Please may we play the video as Andiswa's intro, team. Thank you.
MaxProf is a specialized value-added tax review company founded in 2001. We're supported by a team of knowledgeable professionals with experience in excess of 100 years. We're a BEE Level 2 company and are ISO 9001-2015 certified. So it's safe to say we know a bit about VAT. Let us be frank, nobody wants to hear about taxes. But what if I told you that instead of taking much needed monies away, MaxProf can put profits back into your business? To date, MaxProf has saved close to 10 billion for its clients since its inception. These savings can go towards things such as increasing your staff complement, paying bonuses, expanding to another province, paying suppliers, or keeping the lights on for another year. Through our VAT review and accounts payable services, we aim to address 3 common issues. 1, to ensure that you have tax compliant invoices. Whether the invoices are leaving or coming into your company, we aim to ensure that they meet the SARS standards. 2, resolve your SARS audits. Whether your return has been slowed down due to verification or any other external issue, MaxProf can intercept and help resolve this for you. 3, we seek to improve your operating cash flows and give your business the much needed financial boost that it needs to strive another day. MaxProf also offers value-added services to our clients at no additional charge. Our site-accredited VAT trainings, VAT opinions, VAT rulings from SARS, financial reporting on VAT, and our seasonal technical newsletter, which holds valuable information that can be of great benefit to your organization. MaxProf goes above and beyond by dedicating 1% of its invoice profits towards CSR projects in the communities that we work in. We do this by partnering with our sister company EST, which distributes bursaries to students in need.
Thank you so very much for that video. That is basically what maximum profit recovery does for businesses. I would all agree that one of the issues, especially small businesses that face, is the fact that they would get a contract and then their tax compliance status is hindering them from continuing doing business. If you default on your submissions, your tax status is going to reflect as non-compliant. And some businesses might not want to then carry on doing business with you. That is where Max Prof comes in. We make sure that whatever dealings that you have with SARS, we become your agent to actually ensure that we fast track whatever is the issue that is causing you to be non-compliant with SARS. Our specialty is value-added tax. We would all agree that that is one of the taxes that will affect everyone, whether you are an individual, when you are trading, or you are a company, especially for companies. You know, when businesses are transitioning from being small to medium companies, you will get to a point where your revenue reaches 1 million, for example, and that is when you are required to register for value-added tax. That can be a bit of a hassle if the business doesn't understand the process of registration, doesn't understand the process of submission to SARS, whether on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, in order to ensure that your tax matters are in order. The issue become even worse when you do submit and then SARS comes back and say, well, we need to perform a verification just to ensure that whatever you submitted is in the manner that it was supposed to be submitted. So if you then upload, for example, invoices that are not compliant with the requirements of SARS, you will be assessed on that invoice. For example, if you say I want to claim VAT on an invoice that I paid, let's say you paid 100,000 and then 15,000 of that is supposed to be VAT, and you are eligible to claim it, but the invoice that you submit as proof that you actually made that payment is not compliant. You find yourself in a position where that payment that is due to you is deferred. SARS will come around and say, well, we cannot pay this invoice because, you know, let's say the VAT is incorrectly calculated, or the VAT number of the supplier that you bought this product from is not in the VAT invoice, and thus we will not be able to give you the refund. That affects your business, one, financially, in the sense that you've already made payment to that supplier, but then you cannot claim that money back. It's affecting your cash flow as a business, which are very much needed, as always. So what Max Prof will do is then come in and ensure that they contact that supplier and explain exactly what needs to be done in order for that invoice to be compliant. And you will then, we will contact SARS and give them all the correct supporting documentation, and you will be able to recover that money. And another thing that a lot of businesses are not aware of is that you are able to review your tax matters that are related to VAT going back 5 years. So if you've done a submission for the past 5 years and you suspect that, well, I might have paid SARS more than I should have, or I might have claimed less than I should have, and as a result, there is some potential money that is sitting to SARS that should actually be in my bank account. Max Prof is able to then go through all those transactions that you have declared or claimed VAT on and perform a detailed review and identify all those transactions that may result in a financial benefit for your business. You are then able to resubmit those as long as they are still within the past 5 years, and SARS will gladly give you your money back as long as you've got all the supporting documentation that prove that indeed this money is due to you. And the process can be very tedious. This is where Max Prof comes in. We make sure that we deal with all those matters without disrupting any of your business. And the lovely thing is that We understand that if you are struggling to deal with your tax matters, chances are you're missing out on some money that should be in your bank account and it is now sitting with SARS. We will only charge you when you receive the financial benefit from SARS. So our services are on a contingency basis. In essence, if we don't save anything or there's no financial benefit as a result of our VAT review, you will not be owing us anything. Everything that we invoice you is based on what you have saved as a result of our VAT review. And a lot of people would say, what if then this opens up a can of worms? SARS comes in and does an audit and they uncover that we have not been doing stuff correctly and now we have to pay them over. We are available to assist with SARS audit if they come back on the work that we have done and ensure that we assist them with whatever information that they need for the audit process to go smoothly. And also you will wonder what kind of transactions would a company miss, for example. For instance, in 2018, the VAT rate changed from 14% to 15%. Whether you're doing your VAT returns manually or you have a system, there's always that human error that, during that transition, there might have been a gap between actually implementing that VAT rate change and when it actually did change. And subsequently, no one reviewed that to check whether or not you had missed out on some financial benefits as a result. So we do assist with those as well to ensure that at all times you don't have to worry about your tax compliance matters. Thank you very much. That's it from me. I can take any questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Andiswa. Much appreciated. Thank you for your insight and for your lovely presentation. I'm going to go to our chat box and see. I'm not picking up any questions for now, but that does not mean there aren't any coming up. So please bear with us. Thank you so much. I'm going to urge, the delegates to engage us on this subject. While you think about, what your question could possibly be, I think something just popped up. There we go. Andrew Leo, he's asking, as a new small business, when should we start to pay tax? And what if we are making a loss with a high turnover?
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. For normal income tax, you have to, as soon as you make revenue, you have to register for normal income tax. For value-added tax, once you hit 1 million turnover, you can then register for VAT. Another thing that is very important is that the submission is mandatory. So even if you end up making a loss at the end of your financial year, you can still submit your nil returns. And also another advantage of that is that if you make a loss this year, and then you make a profit the following year, SARS will allow to roll over the loss that you made this year to reduce your tax liability in the upcoming year. So it is important to still prepare your financials and submit your return. It will be a nil return. So in essence, you won't be paying anything, but it will be there. SARS will be aware that, for example, you've made a loss of 1 million this year. Then the following year, if you make a profit of, let's say your tax liability is then 2 million, you can then first reduce it with the 1 million loss that you incurred in the previous year. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Andiswa, for taking that. Much appreciated. I'm sure, Andrew's good. So thank you so much. And moving along with our program, we now have on the line Talita Maud, Senior Manager Operation from the Office of the Tax Ombud. And I'm assuming that Talita, or at least I'm told, that Talita is doing a joint presentation with Selby Mahwasha, Manager Registry from the Companies Tribunal. You're welcome, colleagues. Please go ahead. Thank you so much for your time.
Good day. This is Talita from the Office of the Tax Ombud. I hope you can hear me. I have a presentation that I'm going to do, Happy, and I would like to share it.
Yes, with pleasure, Talita. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, is it showing on your side?
Yes, yes, it is showing. Please, can you put it on presentation mode on your
Yes.
system? Thank you.
Okay, I've just done it. Okay, thank you, Happy, and thank you for inviting the Office of the Tax Ombud to come and share what we do with your clients. And good morning to everyone. I'm going to share with you the mandate of the Office of the Tax Ombud, and then I go into the internal process that we follow when we receive complaints from taxpayers, and also share a little bit on a high level of the type of complaints that the office has reviewed. This is, in order to educate taxpayers so that they don't repeat the same mistakes that others have repeated, and also to see if they have the same complaints, tax complaints, and they can use our office. The mandate of the Office of the Tax Ombud in terms of Section 16 of the Tax Administration Act is to review and address any complaint by a taxpayer regarding a service, procedural, or administrative matter arising from the applications of the provisions of a tax act. Now, what do we mean by service? We know that SARS has a service charter. And if SARS does not adhere to the timelines that they have put in their service charter, a taxpayer can come and lodge a complaint with the Office of the Tax Ombud. Procedural, we know that tax is law, as Andiso was just highlighting with us before I present. And the procedures in terms of how SARS is supposed to administer your tax affairs are in the tax legislations. And if SARS does not adhere to such, taxpayers can come and complain with the Office of the Tax Ombud. The same with administrative matters, which in our space refers to the pure administration of your tax matters. Now, we have what we call systemic issues. These are complaints that taxpayers lodge with us that have a potential of affecting more than one taxpayer. I wish to invite you to look into our website, because we have a list of the systemic investigations that have already been concluded that you could use when you lodge complaint with us. Because when you have a matter that is a systemic matter, you do not have to lodge a complaint with SARS first. Now, how do we review a complaint? Once the Office of the Tax Ombud has received a complaint, we review it after we are satisfied that a taxpayer has exhausted the SARS internal complaint process. The internal complaint process within SARS is the SARS complaints management process, which is an office that is designated by SARS to deal with complaints when taxpayers are aggrieved. However, you can lodge a complaint with us before you lodge a complaint with SARS Complaints Management Office if you have compelling circumstances. These compelling circumstances need to be advanced by a taxpayer and say to us as the Ombud, these are the reasons that are compelling for me not to go to SARS and complain. And the Office of the Tax Ombud will look into that. What are the limitations on authority for the Tax Ombud? These are the type of complaints that we cannot review. We cannot review complaints that refer to legislation or tax policy. We cannot review complaints that refers to a SARS policy, a matter that is subject to objection and appeal, because sometimes taxpayers, when they are not happy with the assessment outcomes that SARS has issued them, instead of following the dispute resolution process, which is lodging an objection with SARS, they come and complain to the Office of the Tax Ombud and say, SARS says, for example, I owe them, and I'm of the view that they owe me. So that matter is now subject to objection. It cannot come to the Office of the Tax Ombud. Also, we cannot review a decision that is before the court. The resolution and recommendations of the Tax Ombud, as outlined in Section 20, subsection 2 of the Tax Administration Act, recommendations of the Office of the Tax Ombud are not binding on SARS and not on taxpayers. However, if they are not accepted by SARS or taxpayers, they need to provide the Tax Ombud with reasons why they are not accepting the recommendations. And such reasons need to be provided within 30 days of the notification that you would have received from the Tax Ombud. And such information may be included in the Ombud's report to the Minister of Finance or SARS Commissioner. However, I can assure you that over the past 8 years that I've been working with the Tax Ombud, SARS has implemented over 90% of the recommendations that we send to them. The internal process that we follow when we receive a complaint from taxpayers, the first step that we check is the complaint against SARS? And I'm sure you would say, but it's obvious. People that complain with the Tax Ombud should be complaining about SARS. And it is not that obvious. We do get complaints where taxpayers complain about their employers. They complain about a whole lot of things that are not related to SARS. If a complaint is not against SARS, we would reject it and explain to the taxpayer why we are not going to review such a complaint. The next step that we check is, does the complaint relate to the application of a tax act? Because sometimes a complaint will be against SARS, but a person is complaining that they have applied for a job at SARS and SARS has not provided them with an outcome. That is not within our mandate. We would reject them and recommend to them where they should go within SARS if that is the case. We then check if does the complaint relate to a service, administrative, or procedural matter. And if we are satisfied, then we move to step number 2 to check if the internal processes within SARS have been exhausted. Now, I have already indicated that this means that the taxpayer should have complained with the SARS CMO, and also we check if the SARS CMO timeframe has lapsed, because the SARS CMO has 21 business days to resolve complaints that are lodged with them. And we also check if there are compelling circumstances, if a taxpayer has not lodged a complaint with SARS CMO. If there are compelling circumstances, then we look if these compelling circumstances are as per what the Tax Administration Act is guiding us. And this refers to a complaint has been identified as a systemic issue. That is why it is important for taxpayers to visit the Tax Ombud website and read the systemic issues that we have already identified, because it is in your best interest. Also, referring the taxpayer back to CMO will cause undue hardship, or referring the taxpayer back to CMO will not resolve an issue within a reasonable time. For example, we had received a complaint before the Olympics, and the taxpayer said, I have applied for a tax compliance certificate because it's a requirement for me to get this job. And SARS, unfortunately, they have taken their time, and I have already booked a flight for me to go for the interview. And we said, if we as going to send the taxpayer back to CMO because she had not complained with CMO, she would lose on a possibility of getting employment. And that matter was treated as an urgent matter. And because it was compelling, if all these are yes, we then move to step number 3, where we check if the limitations of the tax ombud, the complaint does not relate to them. Is the taxpayer asking us to review legislation or tax policy? Very often when taxpayers have missed the deadlines, as Andiswa had indicated in her presentation, we find that, for example, you did not lodge an objection or appeal a decision with SARS when they disallowed your objection, and you come after 75 days to us. In most instances, taxpayers would come to us after 2 years. And you know that after 75 days, SARS has no discretion. And they would want the tax ombud, because he is a judge, to review that legislation, because some would say the legislation is unfair because they didn't know. Unfortunately, such complaints we cannot review because it's within the limitations of our office. We also check if the taxpayer is asking us to review SARS practice generally prevailing, or is the taxpayer asking us to review a matter that is subject to objection and appeal? And I can tell you these ones are common because not everybody understands tax processes. And it is important for taxpayers to just go into the SARS website and the Tax Ombud website, because these timelines are put there. We also check if the taxpayer is asking us to review a matter that is before the court. In this case, we have received a complaint where a taxpayer says SARS is not implementing the recommendations of the court. So in that way, we would review such a complaint and ask SARS to implement the decision of the court. The last step that we then look at when we review a complaint is to determine the facts of the complaint by considering the SARS and the taxpayer's action. In this way, we want to determine if there is a valid complaint against SARS. And it is important to note that the Office of the Tax Ombud has full access to SARS systems that relates to any tax type. So we are able to determine what SARS has done in your tax profile. We don't wait for them to tell us what they have done. We then determine the best way to facilitate resolution and refer a matter to SARS. In some instances, we even ask SARS for mediation, because when we relate with a taxpayer and we engage with them, we can just hear that here there was a breakdown of communication between SARS and the taxpayer. And we then facilitate a mediation where we
Talita? I think Talita has connectivity problems. Are you back, Talita?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Where did you lose me?
I have no idea. I think you had problems with your connectivity because you froze on screen. That's why. Yeah.
Oh, but did you hear me?
Well, I think, can I ask that you take us back to what you said 2 minutes ago?
Oh, okay. All right. Which is step number 4. We determine the facts of the complaint by considering the taxpayer's side and the SARS actions. And it is important to note that the Office of the Tax Ombud has access to SARS systems that relates to any tax type. So we are able to see what has transpired into your tax profile. Once we are satisfied that there is a valid complaint, we then determine the best way to facilitate a resolution and refer the matter to SARS. If there's no valid complaint against SARS, we terminate the complaint and explain to the taxpayer why we are terminating it. These are the type of complaints that we have dealt with. Delays in payments, where taxpayers are saying SARS does not have a reason not to pay my refund, and they have put a stopper on it. Non-adherence by SARS to the dispute resolution regulations, SARS not adhering to the timelines, and SARS not making decisions with documents that they have received from taxpayers, and in some instances requesting the same documents over and over again. And also incorrect allocation of payments, which taxpayer would have made, especially for the pay-as-you-earn ones. SARS failure to respond to requests by taxpayers, where taxpayers are asking for suspension of payments or making a compromise on their debt, and waiver of penalties and interest. Also refunds that are paid into incorrect bank accounts. With this one, I really want to just pause a little bit, because even taxpayers in some instances, we find that they make mistakes. A taxpayer will have more than one bank account. They have a bank account that they use where the employer pays their salary, which is the bank account that will be used to generate your IRP5. And then they go to SARS and say, my refunds must be paid into Capitec account, for example. But when they submit their tax returns on e-filing, they then, because the e-filing will upload everything that is on your IRP5, and there's a disclaimer there that says, I confirm the information is correct, and people just quickly say yes, and it automatically updates your banking account to the one that is on your IRP5. And taxpayers would say SARS paid money into incorrect account. That is not true. So we need to be careful when we file our returns. Profile hijack is where taxpayer says, I don't know who filed my returns, I haven't received this refund, and now SARS says I owe them. And matters of tax clearance, which affects businesses. In closing, the Office of the Tax Ombud, our services are free for anyone, whether you are an individual or you are a small, medium enterprise or you are a large corporate. We also deal with multi-internationals. They also come and complain with us, with the Office of the Tax Ombud. So anyone who is a taxpayer can lodge a complaint with our office for free. And you don't have a limit as to how many complaints you can lodge with our office. We are accessible, except that we are only based in Pretoria, but we are accessible online now due to COVID. But before, we used to go to taxpayers. You deal with one person in our office until your matter is finalized. And it is important to note that we have access to SARS systems. So when we share with the taxpayer and make a recommendation, please know that we know the truth. If SARS has made a mistake, we know the truth that SARS has made a mistake. And when we reject your complaint, we know that you are the one who has not done what you were supposed to have done. That is the end of my presentation, and thank you very much. I'll wait for questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Talita. Just quickly going through the chat box to see, and there isn't anything as yet, but maybe after we hear from Selby Mahwasha, there will be questions that are coming through for you as well, Talita. Thank you for your time and your contribution. It is much, much appreciated. Welcome, Selby. Please, may I request that you go ahead? Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead, Selby. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Selby Mahwasha. I am the registrar at the Companies Tribunal, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity, so that we can share our services with our with our customers. Okay, the Companies Tribunal was established in terms of the Companies Act number 71 of 2008. It is an entity of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. The entity consists of the chairperson and members who are legally qualified. And the mandate of the Companies Tribunal is stipulated in Section 195 of the Companies Act, which includes adjudication of company disputes, the resolution of company disputes in terms of alternative dispute resolution, which we simply refer to the ADR. And then we are also empowered to review the decision of issued by the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission. Our mandate is to mainly serve companies which are registered in terms of the South African laws. So in terms of our mandate, we have got two processes. We have got an adjudication, as I've indicated earlier, and then we've got the other fold, which is alternative dispute resolution. And then from this information that I've gathered, I will talk about the process that can be followed when one to file an application under adjudication. With adjudication, there are a number of applications that can be filed at the Companies Tribunal. Number one, we have got the review of compliance notice. It falls under the decision issued by Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission, because if companies are not complying with the Companies Act, CIPC or the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission is empowered to issue compliance notice in terms of Section 171 of the Companies Act. So if a compliance notice is issued, companies or the directors and shareholders of companies are expected to comply with that compliance notice. But should they wish that maybe compliance notice was issued in error, so they can file an application at the Companies Tribunal to set aside that compliance notice, because we are empowered in terms of Section 172. Is either to confirm the compliance notice issued by the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission, or to set it aside, or to modify. So the parties are welcome to file such application should a compliance notice issued by a Companies in Intellectual Properties Commission against their companies. And then the other type of applications, we've got an exemption to convene annual general meeting in terms of Section 61 of the Companies Act. If companies are experiencing some challenges, maybe their financials are not up to scratch, or they do not have directors or shareholders to convene annual general meetings, they can file an application at the Companies Tribunal to be exempted to comply, because they are bound to comply in terms of the Companies Act and the MOI of their respective companies. So the other one, the type of application under adjudication, we've got the removal of a director or the director disputes in terms of Section 71 of the Companies Act. The Companies Tribunal is only limited to companies with less than 3 directors, meaning that we only deal with companies that has got only 2 directors. Because the Act is very clear that any company with more than 3 directors, the shareholders or the board of directors can actually take a resolution to remove that particular director. But the removal has to be done in terms of the process outlined in the Companies Act. But if a company has got 2, then the Companies Tribunal is the right platform to actually engage on that dispute. And then the other one, we have got the name dispute, which is common in terms of the number of applications that we are receiving. This is actually filed in terms of Section 11 and Section 12 and Section 160 of the Companies Act. This is where actually directors or shareholders have got a perception of confusingly similarity of a name. Or if maybe you make an application at the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission, your name you reserve, because before you can register a name, you firstly have to go and reserve the name. And after reservation, that's when you proceed with the registration of your company. Should you get a notice of rejection while on a process of reserving a name, and then you are welcome to file in terms of Section 12 of the Companies Act to file an application to review that decision, because Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission would have made a decision. And then as I've outlined on my previous slide, I've indicated that we are empowered to review any decision taken by Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission. In that regard, if you get any rejection, because this is more common for people who want to start their businesses, they normally get a number of rejections and then they don't know where to go. And then the Companies Tribunal is the correct platform to actually file your application to review that decision and set it aside, because the Companies Act made it clear that should you get the notice of rejection, you need to approach the Companies Tribunal for a review. Even on that notice from the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission, there is a directive or a guideline that should you not actually get satisfaction from their services in terms of the reservation of a name, then you can approach the Companies Tribunal for a review of that particular decision. And then the last one, we have got the exemption from appointing social and ethics committee. As we know, the Companies Act made a provision that the companies are expected to establish social and ethics committee. And then there are a number of criteria outlined in the Companies Act in terms of section 72. And then should the directors and shareholders of a company realize that they are not able to appoint this committee, looking at the provision of the Companies Act, and then they can make such application to the Companies Tribunal for exemption. Because companies are not automatically exempted from complying. In order for companies not to comply with Section 72 of the Companies Act, they need to make an application at the Companies Tribunal for determination. And then that's all in terms of the type of applications that we can adjudicate upon as the Companies Tribunal. But I've just actually listed 5, but there are a number of applications that can be filed at the Companies Tribunal. For example, the substituted service, because these are the complaints that we used to receive from our clients that they are not able to serve the respondent. For example, if the applicant has filed an application and then in terms of our regulations, you are expected to serve the respondent within 5 business days. And at some stage, parties are not able to find each other on this process. So we have got a process that we call the substituted service, because normally when you serve in terms of the law, you are expected to serve on the addresses that are on the register of company, on the register of companies, which is at the Companies and Intellectual Properties Commission. If you register a company, those addresses that you put on the system at CIPC are the ones that you will use to serve the other director should any dispute emanate at the process of actually running your process. So when you serve, you need to make sure that you serve them at the registered address that are on the register of companies at CIPC. So sometimes people would actually use their home addresses as the business address, and then sometimes it becomes difficult to save the other director if you've lodged an application with the Companies Tribunal. So after you have realized that you cannot serve that particular person, or you don't know the whereabouts of that particular person because you have used your home address as a business address, you will have to apply for substituted service at the Companies Tribunal, meaning that the tribunal will exempt you to actually use any method other than the one that is prescribed in the Companies Act. So the other fault that I have spoken about is the alternative dispute resolution. I have indicated that our mandate is executed in 2 folds. The first one was the adjudication, where I have indicated that that's where we have got the applicant and the respondent, or we only have the applicant only on the ex parte applications. So under the alternative dispute resolution, this is outlined in terms of Section 166 of the Companies Act. And then we keep on saying under Section 166 of the Companies Act, the Companies Tribunal has got unlimited jurisdiction. Remember, anything that we do as the Companies Tribunal, we need to do it in terms of the law. We are the creature of statute, and then we cannot go beyond what the Act actually provides for this institution to exist. So under adjudication, under the alternative dispute resolution, that's where we encourage people to use this platform because we have got unlimited jurisdiction. I'm saying we've got unlimited jurisdiction because a process of alternative dispute resolution also takes place in 2 folds. First one is mediation and conciliation. Under mediation and conciliation, that's where parties are in control. Our responsibility as the Companies Tribunal is to appoint a mediator. A mediator will assist parties with the process and then with the interpretation of the law where they don't understand, and even to make sure that at the end of the day, there is a settlement agreement signed by both parties. We are not actually making any decision under mediation and conciliation. We are not imposing any decision. And then what we do is to facilitate the process, and then we allow parties to be in control. And then the outcome would be something that would have agreed by all parties. And then at the end, they will have to sign the settlement agreement to show that they have agreed with whatever that might have been discussed. And then the other leg of ADR is arbitration. The arbitration will follow the normal process as adjudication, whereby parties will be expected to file their pleadings, and then they will be expected to file their answer and reply. And then the adjudicator will appoint the adjudicator as the Companies Tribunal. And at the end of the day, an award will be issued, which is binding. And then if anyone is not happy, then they are expected to, or they will be expected to take this award for review in the High Court. Even in terms of the settlement agreement, parties are allowed to take the settlement agreement to make it an order of court so that it becomes binding on all parties. So one would say, why should I really follow this process of alternative dispute resolution? Firstly, the process of alternative dispute resolution is voluntary, and then it is confidential. Whatever that we do, there are no recordings. The information belongs to both parties, and then it is a voluntary process, meaning that during the proceedings, one is allowed to actually quit if they feel like it doesn't actually bear any fruits for their presence. And then the other one we have got, it is speedy, because if we have got a mediation today, or if we've got an arbitration today, we are able to finalize it today and sign the settlement agreement or issue an award today or even after a day. But we mostly take less than 5 days to make sure that the award is issued or the settlement agreement is signed. At most, we allow parties to sign the settlement agreement immediately, because once parties leave the negotiation room, they might have some fresh ideas or fresh mind, or they might be influenced by external parties not to sign the agreement that they would have agreed upon. So it is important that we sign before we leave the negotiations room. So the other one is cost effective. We do not charge our services. And then we do not need legal representation, but it is not mandatory to have legal representation. Even if the other party is legally represented, the one that is not legally represented will get assistance from our arbitrator or from our mediator in terms of the interpretation and to simplify the legal processes. And the other benefit is that it is informal. At any time you can break, at any time you can seek clarity from the mediator, and then you don't have to follow the normal court processes. And then it also restores peace amongst directors and shareholders, because at most we get people who are actually not in good terms. So the reason why we keep on encouraging parties to follow mediation is to ensure that we restore peace, and then they are able to continue with their business, because the moment we advise them to go for adjudication, at adjudication, parties do not have a say. The tribunal member have got the responsibility to interpret the law and then make a decision out of it. But with ADR, we encourage parties to actually start with ADR, because out of the process, you'll be able to have resolved your challenges, and then you'll be able to continue with your business, because that is the most important reason why the Companies Tribunal was established, to make sure that parties have got a platform to resolve their disputes. And then I think the other one, we've got the type of cases that cannot be brought to the Companies Tribunal under ADR. With ADR cases, there are cases that you cannot bring to the Companies Tribunal. Firstly, we don't deal with the issue of lease agreements. We don't deal with the contractual disputes. We don't deal with disputes between two companies in terms of their contracts. But we can deal with two companies in terms of shareholding. If there is a company that is a shareholder of a particular company, then we can deal with these two companies, maybe a company and a subsidiary. But we don't deal with two companies who could, we've got a contract or a joint venture. We don't deal with contractual disputes. We don't deal with labor disputes, and then we don't deal with criminal conduct. We cannot mediate, even if it is we cannot mediate non-compliant with the law. For example, you can't deal with fronting, because fronting is it's a crime on its own. So there is an entity that is established to deal with this type of a conduct. And then we also have frauds. And then as the Companies Tribunal, we cannot deal with fraud cases because we are creature of statute. So the cases that can be brought for ADR, we have got the incorporation issue. We have got the issue of transparency, accountability, and integrity issues. So even the issue of shareholdings, any dispute that emanates from the Companies Act under ADR, you are more than welcome to approach the Companies Tribunal for assistance. The other one can be issue of the removal of a director or the issue of governance, because the removal cannot only take place under adjudication. It can also take place under alternative dispute resolution, where we would actually negotiate with parties and ask them to actually go through the process of mediation. And then if the other director is found to have contravened a specific section of the Companies Act under Section 71, then we can try to make sure that we mediate that process. Maybe that director is requested to actually resign, and then you make peace out of the process. You make sure that you still be able to proceed with your business, because that is the most critical part where the Companies Tribunal was established. So I think I've covered most of the issues that I wanted to share with our audience. And then in terms of our accessibility or address, we are based at 77 Menke Street, the DTI campus. We are at 3rd floor, Block E. And then our contact details is 012-394-3071. The other one is 012-394-1000. And then my direct line is 3800. And then one can file an application using our email address, which is registry@companiestribunal.org.za, or you can use our case management system. You log onto our website, www.companiestribunal.org.za. I thank you a lot for the opportunity, and then I will await any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mahwasha. Much appreciated your invaluable inputs to this discussion today for the benefit of our delegates who are on the line, who come from all aspects of business life, trying to, to find ways, to work around their challenges that they come across as businesses. I'm going to just quickly check if there is any question for your attention, Selby. There doesn't seem to be for both you and Talita, which is good. We're hoping that, which is okay rather, because we're hoping that from everything that you shared with us this morning is well received by our delegates who are both on the official Zoom platform and those who are connecting with us from both YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much. I'm wondering that as I, do my closing remarks, if I could ask my colleagues at Proudly South African to quickly pull our game time message, game time narrative, which in a nutshell, really just puts everything that you have heard from all our respective presenters this morning, puts everything into context in regards to why we need to do all of this that we are doing for the benefit of all companies, small businesses rather, that are working hard to make it, to survive. So technical events, Proudly SA, please pull that commercial for me. It's a 60-second commercial. It won't take long. But while we do that, may I please request that all the speakers be back online for a vote of thanks. I saw Dumelo was online just now. There we go. Fantastic. And before we do that, here's game time. You can go ahead, colleagues, and play that. Thank you.
The second half is about to begin. We need to change the scoreboard. It's time for all of us to pause and rethink the game plan in order to save the future. I call on all of us to be game changers because greatness isn't reserved only for some people. By buying local, we're choosing to create jobs and sustain the ones we have. Time and time again, South Africans have taken destiny into their own hands, creating products that the rest of the world wanted to buy. See, the world remembers about us what we sometimes forget, but it's time for change. Let's all buy local. It's game time. Zanzi.
Local is lekker.
Your everyday decisions shape our future.
A very loaded statement, if you like, and I see the speakers are nodding, and we couldn't have chosen an amazing local, a star in our own Waganda, Dr. John Kani, to tell the story. Him, playing the president in that advert to remind South Africans about why we do what we do, all of us collectively, and asking South Africans to in fact, I'll have you know that we conceptualized that idea, game time idea during hard lockdown, 2020. We thought, how are we going to still remain relevant as proudly South African while we all at home and, we're all on our devices and we're on TV, and we've had another family meeting by the president and another one and another one where he's telling us to stay home. We got the necessary permissions. We were out on the road and we created game time. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that that statement is very loaded, isn't it? Really, truly loaded, where he says that, by buying local, we are choosing to create jobs, but we are also sustaining the very jobs that we have. We all know unemployment is a complete crisis, is really a tragedy. And he says that our everyday purchasing decisions, all of us, are going to shape our future. So by buying, and he's asking us to pause and rethink our loyalty to South African products and to South African services. So Dumelo is asking us to pause and rethink our loyalty to your service as an attorney, to your service, Andiswa, Talita, Selby, and Martin, and everybody's product, everybody who's joined in as a delegate is asking South Africans to pause and rethink their loyalty to your product if it's made local, and to your service if it's a local service. So yeah, I'm going to clap for Dr. John Gani on my own. Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to to say that this, to thank you on behalf of proudly South African speakers, and to say that sorry, when we do come knock on your doors again, because we always do, because the narrative continues. It doesn't stop, it continues. So when we do knock, let's and when we, in typical South African style, when we knock, we say, Kimang, Ubani. We'll say it's proudly South African, open the door wide, and we'll be in to tell you our story. So Andiswa, thank you so much for representing Maximum Profit Recovery as their director and representing them well. We thank you for your time, and we thank you for your invaluable inputs. Dumelo, Mashabela, I'm hoping that COVID will play nice and we'll have a life again, and we'll travel the country again like we used to do and engage businesses all over South Africa. Thank you so much once again for your time and for your invaluable inputs. And it's always great to engage with you. Thank you. And Selby, thank you so much. You were last, but certainly not least. Thank you so much, my brother, for your time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And we hope to see you again on these platforms, or at least on a hybrid virtual kind of situation, because at times it's nice to, as speakers, to get together and do what we do best. And so I just threw myself under the bus to create a hybrid virtual situation. You see what marketers do. And this meeting is recorded, so I can't go back on my word. Thank you so much, Talita, Maud. Thank you for your time. Really, truly appreciated, invaluable input, and we hope to engage you once more soon. Martin, thank you. Last but not least, but thank you so much for your time, sir. Much appreciated. We like your background. Very colorful. Very local as lekker kind of vibe. Thank you so much, sir. We really, really appreciate it. And last but not least, the delegates that joined us, stayed on throughout the sessions. We are hoping that you grabbed and absorbed as much as you possibly can. We are here as Proudly South African in case you would like a recording of this session, or you would like us to give you Tumeno's ID number, home address, her husband's number, so she can't run. We'll find her and Andiswa. Thank you so much, everybody. We truly appreciate it. Have a great day further to everybody. We appreciate your time. Have a good day. Bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So,